Okay, now let's look at Matthew 24 a little differently. Let's look at it from the point of view that, because I read a book by a man who said everything in Matthew 24 was fulfilled in 70 AD. How do you know that never happened? I mean, he wrote a book, published it, so apparently a lot of people believe that. Why is that wrong? Because Christ didn't return in 70 AD. It's simple. See? Now we're going to see there's one key event here, but let's look at some things. We've gone over it quite a bit. Okay? As he was going out, verse 1, Jesus departed from the people. His disciples came to him to point out the buildings of the temple, which was a marvelous thing indeed. And the wall where the temple was, and then down to the Kidron Brook, up to the top of the wall of the temple was about 450 feet. And the area where the Mosque of Omar is not where the temple was. So you might ask, why did the Jews say that's where the temple was? Of all people, they should know, wouldn't you think? Okay, but they don't. Why? God wants them confused until it's time to fulfill the prophecy to build the temple. They've got a lot of things ready. They've been working on this a long time, but they're all praying that God will cause a great earthquake and the Mosque of Omar will disappear in a big pit and it will be all flat, and then they'll assemble their temple. Well, it's the wrong place. The Mosque of Omar is on the area where Fort Antonio was. Okay? Because let's see what Jesus said here. Now, is the Word of God true? Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Would he give us a prophecy that would not be true? So if we don't understand it, is the problem with Jesus or is the problem with us? It's the problem with us. Okay? So Jesus said to them, do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, there shall not. Now, remember, over here a little later, Jesus said, heaven and earth will pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Okay? So when he says not, it means that. Be left here, even a stone upon a stone. Now, when you look at the Western Wailing Wall, that's quite another deception of the Jews too. What do you see, the Western Wall? Great stones, one upon another. So how can that be where the temple was? It can't be. And of ironies, when they're down there praying and rocking back and forth, guess what is over the top of that rock? The Mosque of Omar. So they're not praying to God any more than anybody else could. See? All right? Then they wanted to know when these things would be and when he would return. Now, all the things coming down here, he said, first thing, be aware, don't be deceived by anyone coming. Okay, they wanted to know the sign of his coming, completion of the age. So he said, be on guard that you be not deceived. What happened? Got deceived. When the apostolic era came to an end, voila, Satan moved in. Always remember this. When people leave God, Satan moves in. Okay? Ignatius already had Sunday keeping, Easter resurrection, bishops that you submit to. And that was in 118 AD. Satan had it all ready to go. Who was Satan looking for first? Who was the first one that Satan was looking for? You don't know? Remember on the night of the Passover? Jesus said, Peter, Satan has desired you to sift you as wheat, but I have prayed that your faith fail not. He wanted Peter because he knew what he was going to do at Rome. So he didn't get Peter, so they had to lie about it. Okay? Then wars and rumors of war still going on today. Now these things come in cycles. Okay? But I remember outstanding some of the work that John Coulter has done on the history of the church. We're out of those, but you go ahead and write for it. We'll send it to you. But I was reading about what those in the time of the Crusades were saying. 1100 and something. What was going on then? A lot was going on. There was sickness, there was disease, there were plagues, there was earthquakes, all those things going on. And what was going on at Jerusalem? Well, the Crusaders were coming through, King of the North, coming through, down to go to Jerusalem to fight against the King of the South, the Muslims, okay? So they said, brethren, be ready, the time is near. Well, here we are, 900 years later, and it hasn't happened. Okay, we'll find out why. Jesus told us. Okay, so here we have it today. Verse 10. Then shall they lead many into sin, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. That's happened on and off, and look at it coming now. See? Many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many, and because lawlessness shall be multiplied. And this has happened over and over again. You want the epitome of lawlessness? Look at Venezuela. The gift of socialism. Okay? Lawlessness. Look what we have here. Look at our Congress. Now, some of you may not like Donald Trump, but I think he's like one of the judges of old that God raised up because it wasn't time to take America down yet. And they were busy doing it. And we had a president, a do-nothing president, who was overseeing the demise of America. So God says it's not time, so he raises up Donald Trump. All right? Some would say, why would he do that? He wasn't a good man. Well, were any of the judges back there totally righteous? I think one of them had 70 wives, wasn't it? Okay. So, everything that is going on has to be keyed to God's schedule of prophecy. Okay? And we'll show you the thing to watch for here in just a minute. And the love of many shall grow cold. Verse 13. But the one who endures to the end, whether the end of your life or the end of the age, makes no difference. It's the same thing. That one shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. Now circle that. When God says all, he means all. Not part, not some, but all. For a witness to all nations. Now that includes all. That could not have happened until the age of the digital age and technology that we have today. One man can now preach to tens of millions or more than that if necessary. See? And it's a witness. And I hope all the churches of God are doing it. Some of the Protestants are doing some of it. We'll talk about that a little later this afternoon. Now here's the key. Here is the key. Therefore, when you shall see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place. Now, what were they looking at when Jesus was giving this? The temple. Where is the holy place? In the temple. You can't have a holy place without a temple. Okay? Now, what happened with the temple in Jerusalem? Vespasian, when he finally conquered Jerusalem, stood up on Fort Antonio and looked down and saw the temple, and he didn't want them to burn it. But God said what? Not one stone will be left upon another. So they knew there was a lot of gold there. So they set it on fire. The gold was melting, going down in the rocks, and they were breaking up the rocks and undoing the whole thing. It was exactly as Jesus said, not one stone upon another, and that is south of where the Mosque of Omar is. How many have that DVD we sent out where the temple is, okay? If you don't have it, ask, we'll send it to you. All right? Now, hold your place there, and we'll look at two more things. All right? Let's come to Revelation 11, first of all. And we will see that there is a temple. Now, remember, I'll finish this here. When you see the abomination of desolation, then there's a parenthetical phrase there, let the one who reads understand. Now, why was that put there? Who put it there? The Apostle John. Now, why did he do that? Because here in Revelation 11, he had this vision. Did he know that the temple was destroyed? Yes. Did he know that there was no abomination of desolation in there? Yes. Did he know when the time frame would be? No. So he knew it was for a future understanding, so he said, let the one who reads, let him understand. Okay? Now, chapter 11. Okay? Verse 1. Here's what John was told to write. So he knew, with this, as we will see, there had to be another temple. Then the angel gave me a measuring rod like a staff, saying, arise and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship in it, but leave out the court that is within the temple area, and do not measure it, for it has been given up to the Gentiles. That's Fort Antonio, because everything below that had to do with the temple. And they shall trample upon the holy city 42 months, and I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and so forth. Okay? Let's understand about the 2 witnesses. They're going to prophesy 1,260 days. That's different than 3.5 years, and that's different than 42 months. If you don't understand that, get our Daniel Revelation series. Now notice, these are the 2 olive trees. Where do you find the prophecies in the Old Testament of the 2 olive trees? Zechariah 4. Zechariah 3 talks about a high priest who is miraculously cleansed. Okay? So this tells us in Zechariah 4 that the one who is the high priest and the one who is Zerubbabel, the governor of Judea, is a type of the 2 witnesses. So the 2 witnesses will not be under the power of any so-called apostle in the church of God. The 2 witnesses will not come from the church. David Pack doesn't understand that. Okay? God will raise them up and they will stand before God. And then they'll have all the power that they have there. So, John knew that there was going to be a temple. He also knew something else. Let's come to 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, which Paul wrote. Now, Paul wrote this, and remember, the first epistle that Paul wrote was 1 Thessalonians, and 2 Thessalonians was just a few months later. They were all expecting Christ to return. What did they have during Paul's day? Famine, war. Isn't that what Jesus said in Matthew 24? That was part of it, yes. But you see, when it comes to the end, there's one key thing, which we'll put it together now, that ties it all together so we know that this will be it. And why nothing before that can even remotely be categorized as fulfilling that prophecy. All right? So he wrote to brethren. Chapter 2, 2 Thessalonians, verse 1. Now we beseech you, brethren. Now this is a message for us also. Concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him. So he's saying it's going to happen while we're alive, see? It's going to happen. Well, Paul was killed before the temple was destroyed. When he wrote this, the temple was still up and running. So he writes, that you not be quickly shaken in mind, nor be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by epistle, as from us. Fake epistles coming around, okay? Saying that the day of Christ is present. Do not let anyone deceive you by any means, because that day shall not come unless the apostasy shall come first. Now, many people look at that and say, yes, there have been a lot of people apostasy. What is the greatest apostasy at the end time? See, because it's not what we think. There have been people apostatized out of the church of God, right? Okay. Is Christ here? No. What is the great apostasy? Revelation 13, with the beast who is worshipped as God and the false prophet, and all nations will be worshiping the beast and Satan the devil. See? There will be an absolute dividing line. All of those of the world and Satan the devil, and those who are Christ's. Today it's still all mixed up. It hasn't been divided down that way. But here's what's going to happen. Apostasy come first, and the man of sin shall be revealed, the son of perdition. Now notice what he does, and notice what happens to him. The one who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, that is an object of worship, so that he comes into the temple of God. Temple, not a tabernacle, not a holy place on the ground dedicated by sprinkling of the water by the rabbi. See? Into the temple of God and sits down as God, proclaiming that he himself is God. So you see, when John was canonizing the New Testament, he understood that the abomination of desolation was described in detail here, but that when the New Testament was being canonized, it had not yet occurred. So he put in that parenthetical statement, the one who reads, let him understand. So you have to put it all together, because he says, when you shall see the abomination of desolation. Now, when that happens, think of this great, fantastic, glorious thing in the world. See, because remember, God never takes a nation down when it's at its lowest. He builds it up and lets it come to its height. So this is what he's going to do with the whole world system. Now, think on this, just a little clue. Guess who went to visit the Pope recently? Now, there have been a lot of churches go over there to visit the Pope. But one church you wouldn't think would do it. The Mormon Church, the Latter-day Saints. They're all coming home to roost. You know? Coming back to Rome. All right? So he says here's this one. We've never met anyone like this. Muhammad Ali doesn't qualify. Okay? Or that is an object of worship. That's encompassing all religions. So that he comes into the temple of God and sits down as God, proclaiming himself that he is God. Now remember what happens, Revelation 13. They all worship the beast. And the false prophet is saying, yes, make an image to the beast. Why make an image? Because he's a god. The whole world's going to be deceived except the saints. And this is going to be a mammoth thing. People are going to say, hooray, oh, this is so wonderful. This is a great thing that's going to happen. You look at all the nations are united. We've got our leader. We've got God in the flesh. We have our prophet. Everything is just fine. But those other people out there who won't go along, we got to get rid of them, see? Right? That's how it's going to be. So he says, do you not remember that when I was with you, still with you, I told you these things? And now you understand what is holding him back in order for him to be revealed in his own set time. And see, before the book of Revelation was written, no one could have a clue as to what that set time was. Okay? For the mystery of lawlessness is already working, only there is one who is restraining at the present time until it arises out of the midst. And then the lawless one will be revealed. Now notice that it could not have happened yet. Whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth. The word goes out to the angel, take the beast and the false prophet and throw them in the lake of fire. Okay? The brightness of his coming. Even the one whose coming is according to the inner workings of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. And with all the technology we have today, when he first comes into office and takes over, it's going to be miraculous. It's going to make Hitler look like he never even got to kindergarten. Okay? The whole world's going after it. Okay? With all deceivableness of unrighteousness in those who are perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. So what happens? You can say, how's that going to happen? God is going to send a powerful delusion upon them that will cause them to believe the lie. Okay? Now, let's come back here to Matthew 24. So you put that all together. See, this is something we're going to see. And with all the technology today, the whole world will see. And the great tribulation, though there are wars, rumors of wars, and fights and battles between now and then, cannot start until the abomination of desolation. All right? Let's pick it up here. Again in verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, the one who reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee into the mountains. Let the one who's on the housetop not come down to his house to take anything. That's how desperate it's going to be. For those there in Judea, they're just going to get out. Because if you don't, you're dead. And let the one who's in the field not go back to take his garment. And woe to those women who are expecting a child, and to those who are nursing infants at that time, and pray that your flight be not in the Sabbath. Now, since this is at the end of the age, what does it say? What does this tell us? The people of God will be keeping the Sabbath, right? Okay. You see how simple the Bible is? Okay. For then, now notice, this ties back with the when. When you see, then shall there be great tribulation, such as was not from the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be again. Now that's quite a statement, isn't it? And if those days had not been shortened, and that's the correct translation, not cut short, lest those days had been limited. How did he limit them? Prophesied 3.5 years, right? Okay. How many have heard a sermon from the King James Version? God is going to cut short the time. You better hurry up and get things ready. Doesn't happen. Limited. There would be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be limited. So that's something. We are the elect, brother. Now, we're going to see a lot of things happen. There are going to be things developed that will be almost unreal. But it will have to come some more years down the road. How far down the road, we don't know. But the challenge for all of us is this. We need to remain faithful to the end, as Jesus said, whether we come to the end of our lives or the end of the age. It makes no difference. See? So that's the thing to watch for. You can know now that the Temple Institute, you might go online and look up Temple Institute. The Jews have been developing different things for the temple. They have priest robes, they have the Urim and Thummim, they have the lots cast for Azazel and so forth. They're working to build it. Now, I believe, and I won't have to ring the bell because I'm pretty sure of this, okay? When the temple was standing, it was where it was in a tremendous place. And there was a spring that is called to this day the Gihon Spring. Now that spring was fed water way in the mountains, probably going clear up into Syria. And it came down as an underground river. Okay? And I saw how the engineers described it. It would come down, and then it would rise up, and then it would come down. And with it rising up and then coming down, it was a big siphon to pull the water down with a lot of power. And then it would come down to the area where the Gihon Spring is, and that's south of the Mosque of Omar. And the water would come up, and there would be enough water to cleanse the temple area, to clean the sacrifices, to get rid of the blood. You know, all the sacrifices going on, all the blood. You think you have a mess to clean up if you drop a ketchup bottle? Okay? Okay? So the water would come up, and it would come out and flow down. So when they sinned, the water quit coming. So what would be the perfect sign to the Jews today as to where they should build the temple? End all arguments. Spring of Gihon, come with rushing water, coming clear up to the top where the temple used to be. And they will say, this is where we'll build the temple. God has shown us a sign. Now, I want to talk a little bit about another project here. How many here have been participating in GoToMeeting? Quite a few. Okay? Now, we're upgrading the whole shebang with GoToMeeting. It is now going to be CBCG GoToMeeting, separate website. And so what we want to do for those who have not been to it now, Steve Durham has done a lot in the last 2 years to get this all developed and make it a working project. Many of the elders have participated in bringing messages. And the thing that is important here for those down under, in the land down under, okay, is that when they have it at 7:30 Eastern time, it's Sabbath, what, morning? Morning in Australia. So they have a whole bunch of Australians listening. Not something? And then they have a program Sabbath morning at 8 a.m. And in each time, one of the elders brings an hour's message. They record it. You could go back and get it. Okay? The one Sabbath morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, that goes to Europe and that whole time area over there. So those in Ireland and UK and Europe can pick it up in South Africa as well.